Welcome to a place where empathy and communication flourish, and we delve into the building blocks of strong and loving relationships. Before you head out, could you swing by the corner store and grab another bottle for me? Lily called out to her niece Hannah. The sun hadn't even reached its mid-afternoon point, yet Lily was already asking for her second bottle. With a deep sigh, Hannah responded, "Aunt Lily, the shopkeeper already turned me down earlier. I don't think she'll let me buy another bottle." "Tell her I got a job and I'm starting tomorrow," Avery chimed in, attempting to support Lily's plea. But Hannah knew the truth, and she replied, "Auntie, that's not true. You've been staying indoors for weeks now, not even trying to find a proper job." Frustration finally boiled over, and Hannah exclaimed, "After everything I've done for you, this is how you respond? You ungrateful person. I took you in when no one else would. And now you're lecturing me about my life." Hannah's eyes held a mixture of sadness and helplessness as she gazed at her aunt. She realized there was little she could do to guide Lily back onto a healthier path. Lily had reverted to her old habits over the past few weeks. The last time she promised to change, she had actually followed through, giving Hannah a glimmer of hope. But now, Aunt Lily had fallen back into her old ways. As Hannah trudged towards the store, preparing herself to plead for another bottle, she found her mind wandering to the complexities of her own life. Each step felt heavy, burdened by the weight of her circumstances. Her heart ached as she contemplated the challenges she had faced. The burning question that lingered in her mind was, why her? Why had life, or perhaps fate, chosen to pile these heavy trials upon her? Though still young, Hannah's life had already been marked by numerous hardships. In her early years, tragedy struck when her father lost his life while serving in Afghanistan. Left to raise Hannah alone, her mother Isabella faced the daunting task of single parenthood. Navigating the intricacies of this role proved to be a relentless challenge. There were moments when Isabella struggled to make ends meet and properly care for her young daughter. Isabella's health was a constant source of concern. Lengthy periods of illness rendered her bedridden, incapable of tending to herself. The toll on her health began to reflect in her work, as employers expressed their dissatisfaction. What began as subtle hints eventually escalated to blatant remarks about accommodating an ailing employee. Job after job, Isabella found herself forced to leave due to her health, returning home to sob into her pillow in despair. Financial struggles were a constant in their lives, sometimes leaving them with nothing more than slices of bread for dinner. Bowls of plain noodles dipped in salty sunflower oil became a familiar sight, a reflection of their tight circumstances. Hannah attended school in attire that was worn thin and frayed. Children, often unfiltered in their honesty, would candidly express their observations, sparing no niceties. Hannah bore the weight of their bluntness every day at school. She stood as an outsider, shadows of her poverty trailing behind her in hushed whispers. Over time, Hannah grew accustomed to the hushed murmurs of her peers discussing her hand-stitched blouse or a skirt that had long faded from fashion. When Hannah reached 14 years of age, life dealt her another harsh blow. Her mother, the solitary figure who truly cared for her, passed away. In this void, her Aunt Lily, Isabella's sister, took her in. Regrettably, Hannah's quality of life didn't find solace in this change. Aunt Lily's words cut deep, labeling Hannah as a lethargic burden, even though Lily herself rarely engaged in housework or labor of any sort. Assuming Hannah's maturity, Lily thrust the entirety of domestic duties upon her young shoulders. To escape her own frustrations, Lily frequently turned to the crutch of alcohol. Frequently, Hannah was tasked with fetching her aunt's preferred spirits from the store. The store manager, a close ally of Lily's, scarcely declined her credit. Avery cherished her nightly bottle of wine. In times of monetary strain, having racked up considerable debts at the store, Avery would visit a neighbor skilled in crafting homemade cider. As the month waned, her meals would shrink to dipping bread into watery broth to quell her hunger. Money flowed through Avery's grasp like water, slipping away swiftly. Repaying debts only brought fleeting financial stability, followed inevitably by destitution. Intoxicated, Avery would frequently lament, "You're nothing but a burden. I wish you'd find someone and remove yourself from my life." These cruel utterances would inevitably bring Hannah to tears. Lily's friend, Evelyn, employed at her son's shop, often found herself the center of Lily's discussions. Fueled by jealousy toward Evelyn's financially secure family, Lily shifted the conversation toward Evelyn's affluent son, John, prodding Hannah about any attraction she might feel toward him. Hannah sidestepped these inquiries, claiming she had no desire to entertain the topic. Upon Hannah's 18th birthday, Lily's mind began weaving fantasies of the comfortable life she envisioned Hannah could lead, should she consider John as a prospective spouse. Yet, Lily's desire for Hannah's marriage to John was motivated not by concern for Hannah's future, but rather her own self-serving wishes. Should Hannah decide to marry the shopkeeper, Lily held the hopeful belief that her own circumstances would drastically improve. She indulged in fantasies where she could freely visit the store, irrespective of her financial situation, and benefit from her connection to Evelyn. Lily firmly believed that Evelyn would generously share her groceries and that her debts might be pardoned as well. Nonetheless, as an adult, Hannah had no intention of being the catalyst for her aunt's ambitious schemes. The once submissive and compliant Hannah had now found her voice and determination. She openly expressed her unwillingness to participate in her aunt's financial daydreams. The persistent manipulation from her aunt, further fueled by Avery's audacious suggestions that Hannah wed John, had led Hannah to this point. A pivotal moment arrived when Hannah reached her breaking point. "Auntie, I won't be a pawn in your plans," she asserted before storming out and emphatically shutting the door behind her. After regaining composure, she returned to gather her sparse belongings. Hidden away in her closet was a small box, safeguarding the money she had secretly managed to save during her time with Avery, unbeknownst to him. Within the box rested enough funds to cover the rent of a modest room. In addition, Hannah retrieved her father's medal, a cherished keepsake that acted as her token of good fortune. Armed with these resources, Hannah could not only secure a humble lodging in the apartment of an elderly woman but also ensure sustenance for the initial weeks. Upon departing from her aunt's residence, Hannah commenced contemplating her future. Pursuing college was unattainable due to financial constraints. One day, she chanced upon a free newspaper at the grocery store and, as she perused the employment listings, it became evident that most roles necessitated skills she lacked because of her limited formal education. However, her gaze settled on a janitorial vacancy advertisement. Dialing a random phone number from the ad, she made the call and was promptly hired by the recruiter. Arriving at the office on her first day, Hannah entered a spacious room bustling with computers and industrious employees, promptly setting about the task of mopping the floors. Her introduction to the environment was marred by a sharp voice that pierced her ears. This voice belonged to Victoria, an enchantingly beautiful yet profoundly malevolent woman who brought to mind those beguiling yet malicious characters from cartoons. Victoria possessed striking dark eyebrows, almond-shaped eyes, hair reminiscent of a raven's wing, high cheekbones, and a pointed chin. A single glance unveiled the malevolence concealed beneath her beauty. "What's caught your attention? Can't you detect the stench?" Victoria's tone was acerbic. "Your mop is putrefying. Clean it or procure a new one," commanded the woman who radiated a toxic allure. While Hannah walked past the exit, two men seated nearby caught her ears as they dissected her appearance on a scale of 1 to 10. Branda, in contrast, held a unique allure with her beauty exuding a tender and endearing charm, quite distinct from Victoria's. Branda's countenance was gentle, graced by large gray eyes, a prominent forehead, lips reminiscent of childlike plumpness, and thick hair casually tied back in a ponytail. Even her outdated attire couldn't obscure her graceful figure, accentuated by a slender waist and well-defined curves. As she mopped the floor, her bashful demeanor and lowered gaze seemed to cast her in the role of a contemporary Cinderella, enduring the disdain of a stepmother. The men's hushed exchanges of assessments and opinions regarding the new janitor unfolded, their voices hushed to avoid Victoria, the reigning figure in the office, from catching wind. In their view, Hannah possessed beauty, albeit tempered by the wish for more fashionable attire. Regrettably for them, Victoria managed to catch their hushed comments. Barely a full day into Hannah's tenure, Victoria was already engaged in conversations with her colleagues about Hannah's clothing choices. The notion that there was another woman in the office who, despite her role as a janitor and her choice of attire, could be deemed beautiful seemed to irk Victoria deeply. Hannah sensed a surge of frustration, an impulse to rend her mop in two and openly express her disdain for the entire situation. Yet, the realities she confronted necessitated restraint. Burying the rising tide of emotion, she rinsed her mop and continued her duties, opting to disregard the disparaging remarks echoing from some of the women in the office. Each day spent at the office was an arduous trial for Hannah. Victoria not only criticized her fellow co-workers but also extended her reproach to the superiors. Victoria's relentless onslaughts puzzled some of her colleagues, who assumed that there must be an underlying history or dispute between the two young women. Their perception failed to acknowledge that Victoria's actions were simply a strategic maneuver. To Victoria, Hannah represented a potential threat capable of diverting the attention Victoria had grown accustomed to receiving before Hannah's arrival in the office. Among those who recognized Hannah's plight and extended empathy was a man named Liam. From the moment he laid eyes on her, Liam playfully dubbed Hannah as Cinderella. One evening, Liam lingered in the office even after his work hours had concluded, waiting for Hannah given her extended schedule. As Hannah finally emerged, she was taken aback by Liam's approach, inviting her to join him for dinner at a nearby cafe. Their conversation flowed effortlessly, and Hannah found herself pleasantly surprised by Liam's considerate and attentive demeanor. However, the following day brought an unsettling encounter when one of Victoria's acquaintances confronted Hannah within an office space. The woman began her interrogation. "Are you completely oblivious? Spending time with Liam? He's Victoria's boyfriend. Did that thought not cross your mind before engaging with him? They're even engaged, for heaven's sake. Have you considered the repercussions of being seen at a cafe with her partner? Just wait until Victoria ascends to a departmental leadership position. You'll experience true turmoil then." Abigail concluded her outburst with a malevolent grin. Subsequent events provided a jarring surprise for Hannah. While passing by a conference room, she noticed Victoria in the midst of a conversation with several other women. Victoria's gesture summoned Hannah inside. Upon entering, Victoria initiated the exchange with a seemingly innocuous comment, "I adore your vintage attire. Where did you happen to find those pieces?" The other women exhibited an air of uncertainty, unsure if Victoria was genuinely curious. Expanding her commentary, Victoria remarked, "And your footwear? Reminiscent of aged Spanish boots." Evidently, she was ingeniously mocking Hannah's ensemble, intending to demean her in the presence of all. In response, the other women chuckled, mirroring Victoria's apparent amusement. They were cautious not to jeopardize their rapport with someone as ambitious as Victoria, thus acquiescing to her apparent humor. From that point onward, Liam ceased his attempts to ask Hannah out. Whenever their paths crossed in the hallway, he would feign conversations on his phone or deliberately avoid meeting her gaze, unable to directly confront the girl he was gradually developing feelings for. His own complicity in laughing along with the others at Victoria's cutting remarks weighed heavily on him. Despite having fallen out of affection for Victoria long ago, the idea of ending their relationship remained unthinkable for Liam. He valued his job and the steady income it provided, dreading the prospect of encountering the future head of the department. Liam's aspirations hinged on a forthcoming promotion, and he was prepared to employ any means necessary to attain it, even if it meant stifling his growing emotions for Hannah. Victoria's perceived triumph in quashing what she perceived as a threat to her relationship led her to strut around the office, reveling in her conquest. This temporary victory bolstered the image of Victoria, the reigning figure in the office. Meanwhile, Hannah's inherent sense of dignity clashed with the harsh realities of her circumstances. Walking away from her job posed a risk of losing her earnings. Regrettably, she had failed to read the fine print of her contract when she signed, which outlined the potential consequences of quitting within the first month: delays in payment or no payment at all. Her dwindling savings exacerbated her predicament, compounded by her responsibilities to her pet. The thought of leaving her lively kitten, Jackson, hungry was unbearable to her. Then, a small feline intruder unexpectedly entered the office one day. Hannah's heart softened at the sight, and she discreetly sheltered the tiny creature from an irate Victoria. When the workday drew to a close, Hannah took the kitten home with her. Fortunately, her landlord, an elderly woman, didn't mind the presence of the kitten. She named the little creature Jackson. As her finances reached their lowest ebb, Hannah divided the last remaining carton of milk between herself and Jackson, their shared companion in adversity. The eagerly anticipated payday aligned with the day when the company's top executive, Mr. Dominic Grayson, chose to make his appearance at the office. Being the head of the organization, he routinely visited the various branches. His presence induced apprehension in all, except Victoria, who had somehow managed to secure the trust of the war veteran. Victoria's sharp intellect, beauty, and audacious demeanor had garnered Mr. Grayson's admiration. During their tour of different departments, Mr. Grayson naturally made a stop at his preferred area. As Victoria caught sight of him, she promptly rose from her seat to approach him. In her haste, she accidentally knocked a coffee mug precariously positioned on the table, causing the remaining cold coffee to splatter across the floor. Swiftly, she covertly nudged the mug beneath the table, wearing a wide grin on her face. Advancing toward Mr. Grayson, she extended a warm greeting. "Good afternoon, Mr. Grayson. It's been too long, and we've missed you." There was an almost flirtatious curve to her lips, as if she were about to bestow a kiss upon the boss. Casting a brief, spiteful glance at Hannah, who was engrossed in dusting a nearby printer, Victoria began to spin her web of deceit. With a touch of deviousness, she continued, "In fact, we hardly noticed your absence due to the scarcity of Liam. Our HR department appears to be slipping, they're unable to hire suitable candidates. The janitor is becoming a problem once again. Her lack of experience has dulled the office's sheen." Smoothly intertwining her arm with Mr. Grayson's, Victoria guided him to her desk. She pointed out the coffee stain on the floor and subtly indicated Hannah's direction. "I'm at a loss regarding this young woman," Victoria remarked, her tone a mix of frustration and faux concern. "She simply fails to grasp the responsibilities of her role. It's as if she needs to mature." Mr. Grayson's brow furrowed. While he was no longer in his youth, his formidable presence and erect posture were a testament to his military background, which still shaped his demeanor. Understanding that Mr. Grayson, a stickler for order and discipline, abhorred any form of disorder, Victoria perceived this as the ideal opportunity to undermine her perceived rival. After studying Hannah for a fleeting moment, Mr. Grayson instructed her to meet him in his office once he concluded his rounds. The sternness of his tones served as a clear warning signal, portending an unfavorable outcome for Hannah. Later that day, when Mr. Grayson had completed his office visits, Hannah hesitantly entered his office, her lower lip nervously caught between her teeth. "So, what's happening?" Mr. Grayson inquired, his gaze penetrating. "Keeping the office space tidy falls under your direct responsibility," he noted, observing the flushed face of the young girl before him. "I apologize, sir," Hannah replied softly. "I cleaned the entire office this morning. I'm not sure where that coffee stain came from." Taking a deep breath, Hannah mustered the courage to voice her suspicions. "I don't think I have much favor here, sir. Particularly, Victoria seems to harbor some dislike for me. It's possible that she's behind the coffee stain. I suspect she's attempting to jeopardize my position. I believe she wants me fired, sir." Hannah's newfound courage enabled her to speak candidly. Mr. Grayson contemplated the situation, tapping the wooden table gently with his finger. He adopted a friendly tone as he asked, "And your name is?" Confidently, she replied, "Hannah. Hannah Foster." Upon hearing her rather unusual last name, Mr. Grayson shifted slightly in his chair. "Hannah, may I inquire about your father's name?" he gently probed. After a brief dip of her head, Hannah raised it with evident pride. "My father's name is Logan, but he..." Her voice wavered, yet Mr. Grayson interjected before she could continue. "He passed away in Afghanistan," he revealed. Hannah's eyes widened in astonishment, and she seemed to freeze. Removing his glasses slowly, Mr. Grayson focused his gaze on Hannah. He whispered to himself, "Logan Foster," struggling to contain his emotions. The tears threatened to spill over, and though he tried to maintain his composure, he couldn't hold back any longer. The tears flowed freely. After a moment, he composed himself and wiped his eyes. Meeting Hannah's gaze was difficult, but after a few moments, he regained his composure and spoke. "Your father was an exemplary man. He was a person of his word, devoted to his country, a true patriot. It was I who was wounded and abandoned on the battlefield. Your father, a major while I was merely a second lieutenant, made certain that no one was left behind." The truth emerged that Hannah's father had given his life while heroically rescuing his comrade from enemy fire. By now, tears streamed down Hannah's cheeks, yet she maintained her dignity, holding her head high. Whenever Liam, her father, was mentioned, it held profound meaning for her. She treasured his memory and took immense pride in him. "Hannah, you are very much your father's daughter," Mr. Grayson warmly commented, admiring the proud gleam in her eyes. "He was always focused and dedicated to his work, much like you. He went about his responsibilities diligently." He paused, contemplating the issue Hannah had raised concerning Victoria. After a moment of reflection, he concluded, "So you're suggesting that she's the one causing trouble? Well, let me handle this situation, Hannah. Please, continue with your work." The following morning, Hannah entered the office to find an older woman in uniform bustling around the workspace. Her heart skipped a beat, uncertainty washing over her as she wondered what had transpired. Seeking clarification, she made her way to the HR manager's office. Knocking softly, she entered, and Mrs. Gray, the HR manager, stood up with a warm smile upon seeing Hannah. "Hannah, come in. I've been expecting you. Please, have a seat. Would you like some coffee?" Hannah nodded in agreement. "Mr. Grayson asked me to brief you on your new role. How would you feel about trying your hand at public relations? He thought you might be interested. You can start as his assistant and learn as you go." Bewildered and lost in thought, Hannah walked over to her locker and opened it. Out of habit, she picked up her cleaning supplies, her duster, and rag, routines ingrained from her former job. A voice, belonging to an older woman, interrupted her. "Excuse me, young lady, may I ask what you're doing?" It was the new janitor, assuming Hannah was rifling through her locker. Returning to reality, Hannah chuckled. "Oh, I apologize, ma'am. I used to work as the janitor here. I didn't mean to intrude. Today is my first day in a new role." The older woman smiled kindly and said, "Ah, you're the one Mr. Grayson mentioned. You've been doing a splendid job around the office." Hannah smiled back and offered, "If you ever need help, feel free to ask, ma'am." Later in the afternoon, Mr. Grayson arrived and invited Hannah into his office. With a warm smile, he asked, "How are you finding your new position?" Hannah replied, her smile mirroring his warmth, "It's a bit unfamiliar for now, but I'm enthusiastic about learning." Mr. Grayson nodded appreciatively. That's the right attitude. How's your mother doing? And where are you staying these days? Hannah shared her story, and as she finished, Mr. Grayson hastily scribbled an address on a piece of paper. Rising from his seat, he retrieved a set of keys from his desk drawer. Here's the address, and these are the keys. The apartment is currently vacant. Please move in and don't say another word. Hannah's gaze met Mr. Grayson's, brimming with emotions left unspoken. Sensing her thoughts, he offered reassurance. Hannah, this is a small gesture compared to what your father did for me. Without him, I wouldn't be standing here today. Thank you, Mr. Grayson, Hannah said sincerely, gratitude shining in her eyes. Later that day, Hannah returned home and began packing her belongings. Mrs. Evans, her elderly landlady, emerged from her room, curious about the sudden activity. Mrs. Evans, I've been offered an apartment nearby, rent-free. I plan to move out tonight, but I'll cover the rent for the next 2 weeks. Mrs. Evans responded, Oh dear, there's no need for that. I've grown quite fond of you, Hannah. And when you're at work, Jackson keeps me company. Would you consider leaving him with me? Hannah hugged Mrs. Evans warmly, appreciating the offer. As she stepped outside, her phone buzzed. Her paycheck had been deposited into her account, but the amount was significantly higher than expected. She quickly messaged the payroll clerk about the error, only to find out that the company had included compensation for moral damages. It seemed Mr. Grayson had taken action and fired Victoria, citing her behavior's negative impact on the company's reputation. Following Victoria's dismissal, Liam reached out to Hannah, even inviting her to an upscale restaurant. Although Hannah wasn't enthusiastic about the idea, Liam persisted. Throughout the evening, he talked incessantly about various subjects, and Hannah listened patiently, giving him a chance to express himself. Yet, he avoided acknowledging his past actions or lack of support when she needed it most. Instead, he showered her with compliments, praising her intellect and beauty. Hannah responded with neutrality, making it clear she wasn't falling for his charade. As their meal concluded, the waiter discreetly placed the check on the table's edge. Liam suggested splitting the bill, but Hannah smiled and replied, I've got this. Hannah's life took a positive turn once she settled into Mr. Grayson's apartment. Her new job brought her joy, freeing her from the constant struggles of her past. As she engaged more deeply in her department's operations, she built strong relationships with her colleagues. Nevertheless, she couldn't forget those who had mistreated her before Mr. Grayson recognized her worth. One day, returning home, Hannah noticed her apartment door was ajar, a state she never left it in. Concerned about a potential break-in, she cautiously entered and discovered a suitcase by the entrance. In the living room, a man a few years older than her was sound asleep on the couch. Puzzled, she sat across from him, debating whether to wake him or not. After a few minutes, the man's cell phone, resting on the glass table, began to buzz. Dad, flashed on the screen. Curiosity piqued, Hannah leaned over and answered the call. Luke, where are you, son? It was Mr. Grayson's voice. Hannah stepped into the hallway to talk quietly. Mr. Grayson, it's Hannah, she began, suppressing her amusement. Hannah, how did you? Oh my, I completely forgot to tell him. I'm so sorry, Hannah. Hannah reassured him, no worries, Mr. Grayson. Don't fret about it. Can you wake him up? I'll ask him to leave. No, there's no need for that, Mr. Grayson. Let him rest. I'll be fine. Mr. Grayson agreed, all right. I apologize again. Luke continued to sleep soundly, appearing as if he hadn't rested in days. His tired state, dressed down to his jacket and shoes, indicated his extreme fatigue. As the evening advanced, Hannah realized Luke wasn't going to wake on his own. She began preparing dinner in the kitchen. Despite setting the table and playing music to rouse him, Luke remained sound asleep. Finally, Hannah approached him, gently touching his shoulder. His eyes snapped open at her touch, displaying sudden alertness that took her by surprise. Luke straightened up on the couch and blurted out, "Who are you?" A few months passed, and Luke and Hannah's connection became unbreakable. They relished each other's company, sharing countless moments of laughter and camaraderie. Despite Luke's role as vice president, which often led to business trips, he and Hannah grew inseparable after they started dating. He consciously chose to scale back his travel commitments, recognizing that relationships demand as much attention and dedication as his career. For the initial 6 months, Luke treated Hannah as his top priority, conveying his implicit trust in her and offering his complete trust in return. Their relationship flourished like a meticulously tended garden, flourishing with trust, respect, and profound affection. Beyond romantic partners, Luke and Hannah resembled siblings, their connection grounded in shared understanding and experiences. Their emotional intimacy allowed them to be open and transparent, divulging everything from daily achievements to personal vulnerabilities. This depth of connection held particular significance for Hannah. Her life had centered around a close-knit circle of cherished individuals, making her relationship with Luke a unique addition, a source of shared warmth and companionship. Their genuine affection was evident in every interaction, supporting one another during challenges, celebrating successes, and learning from each other's life lessons. Their laughter was the harmonious soundtrack of their days, filling their shared spaces with joy and comfort. As they navigated life's undulations hand in hand, their focus lay more on the journey than the destination. Their love was authentic and profound, a testament to their unwavering commitment. Then came the day when Luke invited Hannah to a family dinner, an introduction to his mother. The evening unfolded delightfully, brimming with warmth and engaging conversation. Luke's mother exuded grace and charm, her welcoming smile matched by her open heart, which instantly put Hannah at ease. Following dinner, the two women found themselves in the kitchen, sharing stories as they washed dishes. Standing elbow-deep in soapy water, Verek's mother began painting vibrant pictures of Verek's childhood, filled with boundless curiosity and endless energy. She narrated their family's milestones, triumphs over challenges, and the unforgettable memories woven together. Listening, Hannah couldn't help but feel a growing sense of belonging. Through these tales, she glimpsed into Luke's past and gained insight into the family she was embracing. Luke's mother fostered a warm and inviting ambience that further connected Hannah to Luke and his family, deepening their bond. As the evening advanced, Hannah learned something new about Luke. He had been adopted by Mr. Grayson during his childhood, a revelation that surprised her. Unable to have biological children, Mr. Grayson had parted ways with his first marriage as a result. He subsequently met Monica, Luke's mother, and they chose to adopt Luke. The love and care Luke had been raised with only added to the warmth and compassion in their tight-knit family. This revelation illuminated the profound connection between Mr. Grayson, Luke, and Hannah. Despite the unexpectedness, Hannah valued the transparency with which the story was shared. It spoke volumes about the trust and acceptance anchoring their family, making her feel even more welcome and cherished. This deepened her understanding of Luke's past and the unique paths that led them to this moment. The journey might not have been conventional, but the love they shared was undeniable. Mr. Grayson held a profound respect for Monica, his wife, who had chosen to be with him despite the challenge of not having biological children. Her decision to marry him, knowing they wouldn't have biological offspring, revealed a depth of love and commitment he held dear. Not only did she embrace him with his limitations, but she also embraced the concept of nurturing their family through adoption. This profound choice showcased Monica's empathy and unwavering support, qualities mirrored in Mr. Grayson's affection for her. Their journey in building a family, commencing with Luke's adoption, showcased their shared values of love, resilience, and acceptance. Growing up in such a nurturing environment, Luke absorbed the mutual respect and unconditional love between his parents. Their relationship profoundly influenced his values and outlook on life. The kindness, respect, and unwavering support they demonstrated became guiding principles for Luke, inspiring his approach to communication, problem-solving, and navigating life's challenges together. Their love story wasn't just a tale of shared happiness, but also one of shared growth and resilience. Their unwavering support through challenges and shared celebrations taught Luke the value of community and the art of compromise. This upbringing imprinted within him a profound respect and empathy for others, traits he brought into his own relationships. This essence was evident in his relationship with Addison, treating her with the same respect and tenderness he witnessed in his parents' dynamic. Their connection thrived on mutual trust and understanding, nourished by the family foundation they had been gifted. Following a delightful dinner, Hannah and Luke returned to their apartment, a space enveloped in warmth and memories. For Hannah, the reality of her present circumstance felt almost surreal, as though living in a dream too wonderful to be true. Every facet of her life seemed to slot into place like perfectly matched puzzle pieces. From her fulfilling role in public relations to the deepening bond with Luke, every aspect seemed to align in a way that bordered on the magical. As they settled into their cozy living room, Hannah pondered her journey. Gone was the solitary janitor of months past, replaced by a cherished member of a loving family and a thriving professional in her career. The transformation, remarkably swift yet seamlessly integrated, left Hannah occasionally astounded. Yet, as she glanced at Luke, his soft smile radiating contentment, she felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Life had presented its fair share of obstacles, but it had also granted her unexpected blessings, for which she held a deep appreciation. With each passing day, Hannah's belief in the potency of resilience and the enchantment of fresh beginnings grew stronger. Life, to her, felt truly enchanting. In just a matter of months, Hannah found herself engaged to Luke, their wedding day rapidly approaching. One tranquil evening, as they delved into wedding preparations, discussing guest lists and invitation designs, a surge of emotion prompted Hannah to open up to Luke. Softly, she began, "Luke, I've faced my share of challenges in life, and truthfully, I never envisioned finding someone like you. You've been an extraordinary influence, transforming my life in profound ways. If it weren't for you, I might never have summoned the courage to share what's on my mind. I'd like to extend an invitation to my aunt for our wedding. I hope you're comfortable with that." Luke's face illuminated with pure delight upon hearing Hannah's words. Aware of the intricate history between Hannah and her aunt, he had secretly held on to the hope that Hannah would one day overcome past grievances. Understanding the significance of forgiveness and healing, Luke firmly believed that harboring grudges only caused more harm than good. He had wished for Hannah to arrive at this realization independently, and now, hearing her articulate it, he swelled with pride and relief. This was a substantial stride for Hannah, an embodiment of her growth and resilience, and Luke couldn't have been happier for her. After all, Lily, Hannah's aunt, was the one who had taken her in after the heart-wrenching loss of Hannah's mother. While material possessions might not have been abundant, the life Lily offered was imbued with invaluable wisdom. Under Lily's care, Hannah had learned to confront adversity and navigate life's tumultuous seas. Resilience, self-sufficiency, and the significance of hard work had all been imparted to her. The challenges she encountered early on equipped her for the journey she would eventually undertake. Hannah's feelings for her Aunt Lily were a complex tapestry interwoven with gratitude and lingering resentment. Standing at the threshold of a new chapter in her life, Hannah felt prepared to extend an olive branch, recognizing Lily's role in her upbringing and inviting her to witness the woman she had evolved into. The wedding of Luke and Hannah was an intimate, heartfelt event, attended solely by those who held profound significance in their lives. Amidst this exclusive group was Mrs. Evans, the elderly woman who had provided solace when Hannah needed it the most. Aunt Lily was also among the attendees. Throughout the occasion, she maintained a quiet presence, perhaps grappling with remorse for past actions and the intricate relationship she had shared with Hannah. The woman now standing resiliently at the altar was a stark contrast to the young girl Lily had taken under her wing years before. As Lily watched, a melange of emotions enveloped her: pride, regret, and a newfound yearning for reconciliation. After Mr. Grayson's heartfelt speech expressing his affection for his son and new daughter-in-law, he took Hannah aside for a private conversation. "Hannah, there's something I've been wanting to share with you," he began, his voice steady despite the gravity of his words. "I've been aware of you, your mother, and your aunt for a long time, Liam. I've tried to offer assistance amidst your many trials, but your mother has consistently kept me at a distance." Mr. Grayson's gaze softened with regret as he continued. "She could never forgive herself for what happened to your father, and she held me responsible. The weight of that guilt has been my companion since then, yet my hope never wavered. I held on to the dream of setting things right someday." This revelation left Hannah in stunned silence. The benevolent Mr. Grayson had been a silent influencer in her life, a revelation that engendered profound gratitude within her. In that moment, amid the jubilant celebration of her wedding, Hannah felt a profound sense of tranquility. She had traversed a long path from her days of hardship and uncertainty. Now, enveloped by those who genuinely cared for her, she felt equipped to embark on this new journey. The words of wisdom echoed in her mind: "Always be thankful for what you have. You never know what might happen next." And that's how my story ends. I hope it inspired you, surprised you, or made you curious. If you enjoyed my stories, please support me by liking this video and subscribing to my channel. And if you have any questions or advice about this story, please comment below. I love to hear from you and learn from you. Thank you for your attention and continued support. See you next time.